What is up, my fellow cyber hornets? Jonathan Levy here, and I hope you are very excited because in today's video, I'm going to do a review and unboxing of the latest, greatest hardware wallet on the market, the Keystone Vault. Hey again everyone, Jonathan Levy here. I hope you're super excited because today I'm going to be taking you on a walkthrough of the Keystone Vault. Now, if this product looks familiar to you, it's because it is. This product was formerly known as the Keystone Vault, and the lead engineer and developer and creator, Li Shin, who is known in the Bitcoin community, it turns out, has actually left the company to pursue this project, explaining that he was held back because it was not a priority for Cobo. So we can only expect to see a lot of new and really cool things as they continue to develop this product independently. Now, I have to admit, in the very beginning, I was extremely skeptical. I don't know about you, but I have seen on Reddit and other places where literally people have modified and created hardware wallets, purchased hardware wallets, and shipped them out in the mail to people with modified or altered chipsets to steal your keys. There have been some incredibly sophisticated attacks. So yeah, I was admittedly skeptical when Li Shin reached out to me and said, hey, we've rebranded, we have this all new wallet, and we want to send you one to test out and put your Bitcoin on it. So yes, I went ahead and I did a lot of research. I looked into Li Shin and his history, and still I am keeping a very small percentage of my stack here, only the parts that I would be willing to part with, the rest all being in multi-signature, super sophisticated, will not get into my setup. Now, I want to tell you all about this wallet, walk you through and show, but first let's do the obligatory unboxing. All right, so what is in the box and what makes this wallet so special? I have to admit to all of you that I was very much considering purchasing this wallet before Li Shin reached out and offered one to me to test, because it has a lot of really incredible features that you're gonna wanna check out. First and foremost, you can see really large screen. This is almost like the size of an older smartphone or one of the original iPhones. It has this beautiful touch screen, which makes interacting with it super easy and super convenient, especially if you want to be mobile and on the go. I love that it has a fingerprint sensor. I cannot tell you how sick I am of typing in my passcodes and or my pins to get into my hardware wallets. It makes it so much easier, and I wish everyone would add a fingerprint sensor because, let's face it, truthfully, biometrics are going to be more secure. It's really hard for someone to look over your shoulder or place a camera somewhere in your home and steal your fingerprint, whereas it's pretty easy to steal a PIN code. Now, the next thing I want to share is really cool. This has multiple batteries if you get the Pro version. So you have these multiple replaceable batteries, and if you ever find yourself in a pinch where you haven't charged the battery and you just need to send out a Bitcoin transaction, you can use any batteries, and I think that is so cool. Of course, you are going to need a secondary device, and I'll get into that in a moment, to send a transaction, but if you want to grab one of your receiving addresses, you could do that in a pinch if you're in an emergency using just some simple AAA batteries. I think that is so cool. I also loved the way that they did this where the battery pack just pops on magnetically. Oh, I love that so much. Let's look at a close-up of that. I actually recorded a close-up B-roll video for you of that. Super refreshing. I also want to point out that they do have a SD card, which is primarily, as I understand it, used not for backups so much like it can be on the Trezor, but actually used for updating the software. Because this is a truly air-gapped setup, it has no wireless connectivity and has no way to plug into it. So the only way to update it is through an SD card. It also has multi-coin support with a caveat, and I'll get into that caveat when I talk a little bit about the pros and cons. And of course, as any air-gapped wallet has to have, and that is the big feature here, it is a fully air-gapped wallet which uses the camera to sign and verify and check transactions. Now, I had never played around with an air-gapped wallet before, so it took a little bit of getting used to, and I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to that and show you exactly how an air-gapped transaction works, because it takes some getting used to. You need to understand this has no communications in it whatsoever. There is no way to interact with it. And therefore, all signing has to happen on the device and then be sucked away by another wallet, whether that be the native Keystone wallet or the Blue wallet, Electrum, or any other wallet that you want to use. So for those of you migrating from a Trezor or Ledger, this is gonna take some getting used to, because you have to understand you need another device with communications access to broadcast to the blockchain network. Now, I wanna focus more because there have been video tutorials of the previous Cobo branded version of this wallet. I want to focus more on some of the pros and cons of this wallet. Like I said, I was heavily considering purchasing this wallet myself, and I was looking for people to give me a comparison and really help me understand what I was getting into. I know we've all heard the names Ledger and Trezor. Fewer of us have heard the name Cobo, and even fewer of us have heard the name Keystone. So let me share with you, based on my kind of experience, what I think about this wallet, and I've used a pretty fair number of hardware wallets in the past. First and foremost, I have to say that in terms of user experience and user interface, this is the coolest and best wallet I could possibly imagine. This is a lot like using a simple Android phone. I think it might even run on Android, just judging based on the interface. It has this amazing vibrating keyboard, so you always know when you're typing and interacting. And to anyone who has been around for the last decade and has used an Android phone or an iPhone, you're gonna know how to use this. It's incredibly simple. There are not a lot of features and things happening. It allows you to sign transactions, and it allows you to receive transactions. That's it. And quite frankly, that's really all you want it to do. You don't want a whole lot more going on this device, because really you should be doing that on the connected component of the wallet. The other thing I really, really love, I'm gonna say it again, I love the fingerprint sensor. It makes things so incredibly easy, and it makes it all worthwhile. The fingerprint sensor and the screen size make it all worthwhile that this is so much bigger than many other wallets in the market. For example, even the much larger Trezor T, I mean, you can see just how much of a difference there is between these two wallets, and yet totally worth it. It's like carrying another iPhone around in your pocket. Now, this one's kind of a pro, but also could be kind of a con, and that is air-gapped transactions. Like I said, we have seen man-in-the-middle attacks where people ship out a free ledger or mess with a ledger or Trezor and are able to implant something into the actual hardware device, overtaking it. We've also seen people. There have been incredible attacks. I will share some of them probably in the comments below. What's really cool about this, there's no communications hardware in here, and there's no way to connect it to a computer to try and attack it or crack it. The EAL5 sealed element stays in here, and the only way to interact with it is by scanning barcodes either this way or with the other device. So one scans the other scans one. And that's a really, really cool feature and a huge pro that I think pretty much every wallet manufacturer is eventually going to go to. But right now, it's relatively unproven. And I know a lot of friends who are storing much more Bitcoin than I am are gonna wait a few years and see if there aren't ways that hackers figure out to overtake, bypass, intercept air-gap transactions. Now, I am not a blockchain security expert. I'm not a security expert at all. So I don't know how that could be imaginable, but then again, many people said it was impossible to use a wavelength sensor to sense the private keys through a USB cable, and yet someone figured out how to do that with a Trezor. Of course, they later patched it. So who knows what attackers are going to figure out for attacking these wallets? We don't. And so that pro of the really cool air-gap transactions is also kind of a con. Now, it does come with the incredible benefit of being able to go truly mobile with this. You put this with your phone, put the two of them in your pocket, and away you go. You are fully mobile. Whereas with the Trezor, unless you have an Android device, you have no way to sign and send transactions without an actual computer. And that's kind of a bummer. I mean, we're dealing with the currency of the future. Why is it that I need to lug my MacBook Pro around all the time to send transactions out on this really expensive device? So I loved the ability to go out and do mobile transactions, even if it's just receiving. I know I can receive on a watch-only wallet on my phone, but also really, really cool to be able to send a transaction while I'm out and about at a Bitcoin meetup and I don't need to open a computer. It seems like a small thing, but it's kind of a big deal. All right, now let's talk about one of the ones that's really important for me, and that is multi-sig and Shamir backup. I'm gonna be doing a whole other video about the benefits of Shamir backup, but if you've been around in Bitcoin for a while, you know that storing large amounts is really best done through some form of multi-signature wallet. You don't want to be able to access all of your Bitcoin using one device. It's just a recipe for disaster, and that's why most of the people I know who are storing huge amounts have multi-sig wallets. They need to be able to access multiple keys hidden in different places to be able to actually send Bitcoin. And this device, as well as the Trezor Model T, are the only two devices that take that one step further and say, instead of actually having to sign transactions with multiple signatures, which is maybe a little bit too much for the average user, what if we just made your backups multi-signature? So these use a technology, these two wallets are the only ones on the market at this time which use a technology called Shamir backup, which means you have multiple backups and no one of them is enough to restore your keys. You need 5 out of 7 or 2 out of 3 or 2 out of 5 or whatever you determine is the right amount of backups. And that's really cool because up until now, if you're using a standard device with a standard backup, I guess either one of them could have a standard backup, and someone finds your backup, they break into your safe, some bank employee decides to go into the bank vault and get your backup keys, or your trusted third party turns out to not be a trusted third party, they could restore your entire wallet and steal all your Bitcoin. And so for a lot of hardware wallets, actually the biggest security breach or the biggest attack surface was not someone finding out your PIN code, but just someone finding your backup card. And Shamir Backup solves this, and that's why I recommend it to everyone. If you can afford to pick up one of these devices, it takes all the stress away, because now if your housekeeper finds your backup or you accidentally leave the safe open at work because you're in a rush and someone finds your backup, you're okay because they've only found one. Another pro that I really want to give a shout out to the Keystone team is this device has solid security considerations. First off, the first thing they do is make you verify this firmware as soon as you open up. This is very similar to the way that Trezor is actually going to make you install the firmware yourself. They also walk you through how you can check the checksum, the SHA-256 checksum, which is a little bit technical and scary. So they have a quick and easy user interface where you use the device to actually check the firmware on their website. This is great for if you're not a geek, you don't know how to verify package signatures and stuff like that. Makes it really, really easy. And they've done a really, really good job handling a lot of the different security considerations that most people probably wouldn't think about. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the cons. I'm going to start with the first one, the really, really obvious one. Cobo is a lesser known brand in the wallet game, much lesser known than, say, Trezor or Ledger or even KeepKey and Cold Card. And Keystone is even less known yet. So I had misgivings and reservations about putting all of my Bitcoin on this device, and I imagine a lot of other people will too. Like I said, I looked into Lishin and I looked at the open source hardware and open source software. I'm not a developer, and so I can't check it myself. I just kind of had to check that other people were responding well to it. Now, do I really think that someone's going to go through the entire process of building this product, building this company, and building this brand to steal your Bitcoin? Well, probably not. But it is not the craziest thing I have ever heard, and it is not far-fetched out of the imagination. So time will tell with the Keystone wallet. So far, other people I've seen using it and reviewing it have had no problems, and I tend to think that it is trustworthy, but don't take my word for it. Start small. Put some of your Bitcoin on it, see how things go, and gradually move things over as you trust the device. Now, it's not really comfortable to talk about, but I do want to mention that Keystone and Cobo are both companies operating out of China. That might be a concern for some people, after all the crazy scandals and lies and misinformation and propaganda around companies like Huawei. It does concern me a little bit that this company is based out of a country that is not an open and stable democracy, but rather a communist country with some form of autocratic ruling. It bothers me a little bit. I'm not sure if it bothers me enough to believe that something would be implanted in this device, some kind of backdoor, because again, the hardware and software are open source and you can look into them yourself. You can open the device and see that there is no communication equipment inside of it. And yet, I do feel a little bit more comfortable with a company that is operated out of Europe, like the Trezor, or out of another country like the Ledger. So that's a consideration. I don't mean to get into geopolitics here at all, but it is something that I think about when buying a secure piece of equipment. Then again, your iPhone is made in China as well. So do with that what you will. Now, another one of the big no-nos for me was that the native app actually doesn't support Bech32 native SegWit addresses. Now, if that sounds like Greek to you and you don't know what any of that means, it basically means the latest, greatest, and cheapest form of Bitcoin address standard. It's easier to interact on because it's cheaper and smaller on the blockchain, and therefore you are going to pay less fees. Now, this was kind of a big deal to me, and so I reached out to Lishin, who informed me that actually you can flash the firmware of this device to go to Bitcoin-only firmware. And once you do that, you'll be able to use any wallet of your choosing, such as Electrum, Blue Wallet, Sparrow, Spectrum, and so on. Now, initially, I had a lot of problems with the Blue Wallet integration. Apparently, they were waiting for an update, so I had to wait. But there are many people who are using the Keystone or Cobo with the Blue Wallet app on their iPhone and having no problems. And quite frankly, if you're coming from a Trezor anyway, you can only use with Electrum, Trezor Suite, or another form of desktop app like Sparrow or Spectrum. So that's not a big loss for you, and really the big difference here is going to be Blue Wallet. Now, I mentioned a little caveat there, which is you need to flash the firmware to go to Bitcoin-only firmware, which means, and this is a big con if you invest in what I would call shitcoins, if you go to the Bitcoin-only firmware, you have to ditch all the other coins that you're investing in and use this device solely for Bitcoin storage. It also means that you cannot go back. It turns out that once you flash this device to Bitcoin firmware, there is no rolling back. Now, I know that's going to be a deal breaker for some of you, but I have to be honest, I don't keep any other shitcoins on any of my wallets. So for me, that was not a deal breaker. It was not a bug, but rather a feature. Now, here is one that does bother me, and I reached out to Lishin about this as well. I don't think there are plans to change it, but I really love the ability to have multiple sub-accounts to keep things separate. If I'm storing my personal Bitcoin versus my company's Bitcoin, I like to have sub-accounts under one seed, and this device will not do it. In fact, most of the hardware wallets out there, besides I think Trezor, will not do it. And so if you're someone who really likes to have multiple accounts, Well, there is a way you can do it, and that is with different passphrase wallets, which this does support. Basically, wallets that you have to access with the passphrase. You can have a null passphrase one. You can have one that the passphrase is a personal passphrase. You can have even different wallets for each of your family members, and each one of them can have their own passphrase. But it is not the same as having multiple accounts in that you will not see them on one unified screen. And that, Li Xin informed me, was to prevent against the $5 wrench attack, where someone forces you to put in your password because they know that you have additional accounts. So kind of a bummer, and it also adds a certain level of risk because those passwords either need to be stored in your head, which is a risk if you get bumped on the head or, heaven forbid, something happens to you, or those wallets will need to be stored in a password manager, which if your password manager gets compromised, someone knows the password to access your hidden Bitcoin wallet. So it's a little bit of a bummer that you can't have sub-accounts and you're going to need to have multiple passphrase accounts and log into each one of them separately or set them up on your device separately in order to see multiple accounts, but it can be done with different passphrases. All right, and the last con that I want to share, and this isn't a big deal because I don't imagine you're going to be using the device all that much, but the battery life on this device is quite short. And when I checked, it actually has a 1000 milliamp battery, which is not a whole lot. Now, of course, probably you're not going to be in a situation where you need to send out a ton of different transactions all at once. And so that's not a big deal, especially if you get the Pro and you have this backup battery. But just note that not only is the battery life short, but you cannot continue to use the device while you are charging the battery. An interesting design choice, but basically to show you that there is no USB connectivity on this device, what they've actually done is put the USB charging on the battery itself. So there literally is no USB connection to this device whatsoever. And I think that's to inspire confidence, but it also means that you cannot use the device while you are charging the battery. Again, probably not a big deal, especially because if you're in a situation where you need to be receiving a lot of Bitcoin, you're probably going to use the app and just generate addresses in your watch-only wallet, but it's worth noting. All right, so I really quickly want to show you all how to do an air gap transaction and how to actually set up Blue Wallet, because as we mentioned, if you want to use advanced features of Bitcoin, such as having the BC1 Bec32 native SegWit addresses, the latest, greatest addresses, you are going to need to set your Keystone up to use a different firmware. So to be honest, I had a lot of trials and tribulations here and was pretty nervous about it the first time. And there were some issues with the app, Blue Wallet, where they had not updated to include compatibility. However, now I can go ahead and show you all because I've done it before. So I'm going to really quickly go ahead and plug in the emergency battery pack because, as I mentioned, battery life can be something of an issue with the Keystone. And we'll go ahead and power everything up. Now here in the background, we've gone ahead and blurred this address for privacy reasons, but I have my very own full node, which I'm going to be depositing the funds to. In a later video, make sure to subscribe because we'll be talking about how and why you should be running your very own Bitcoin full node. I know it sounds absolutely ridiculous. Why would I ever want to run my own full node? But I will be explaining. So here we go, that wonderful fingerprint opening that I love so much. And we're off. Now, in order to actually set this up, what you need to do is go into the settings and go to what wallet you're going to use, watch only wallet, select Blue Wallet. Now, I thought this wouldn't matter and I could use Electrum or another wallet because Blue Wallet does use Electrum's server protocol. And I found out the hard way that it did not work. I ended up previously recording this video using Sparrow Wallet because I actually couldn't get any of the others to work, but I've been assured by the Keystone team that everything has been fixed. From there, all you have to do is go back to My Keystone and hit Export Wallet. I'm going to go ahead and take this off screen because I wouldn't want any of you to be able to see my keys for my watch-only wallet. You then go here and hit Add Now, and hit import wallet and scan or import file. And we will go ahead and do this off screen, but as you can see, it will import the wallet. It is importing and we're good to go. And if I want to go ahead and make a transaction, all we need to do is take our Keystone device and take our wallet. We'll go here and we will hit the send button. It will ask us, this wallet is not being used in conjunction with offline signing. Would you like to enable it? The answer is yes. And then we'll go ahead and scan the QR code. Perfect. And choose how much we want to put in. Well, fees are really, really low right now, so I may just put in 0.9 BTC. And I will put a note here, node. Great. Now we get a code of a transaction, okay? And it is, take note, it is a animated code, a QR code. I'll need to unlock the Keystone again because it has logged me out. And I just hit the scan button. I then simply scan the QR code, and it will give me all of the transaction details, which some of them we're going to go ahead and blur out because we don't need anyone to know how much or what addresses I'm using. But for those of you who cannot see because it is blurred, it is telling me exactly how much the fees are, exactly how much the amount is that I'm sending, and so on. Now, I'm actually going to redo that because one of the cool things about using the wallet here, Blue Wallet, is it allows me to set custom fees. And right now, the fees on the network are so low that I'm going to send a transaction for 1 Satoshi per byte. So once again, we'll do this. We'll go back on the Keystone device. We'll hit scan. It will scan. And we now have our transaction details slightly blurred out. The address is blurred out and the amount's blurred out, but it does tell us exactly how much we're paying in fees, exactly what our output is, and exactly what our change addresses are. Fantastic. Now all I have to do is hit sign. I once again need to confirm my fingerprint, which I love because that is a wonderful security addition. And now I can switch over to my Blue Wallet and hit scan signed transaction. I then scan this, we're gonna blur this out, scan that transaction, and simply hit send now. And that's it. A fully air-gapped transaction with no connectivity to the wallet. I can go ahead and go back here. And as I can see, we have everything scanned in and ready to go. Now all I need to do is go back. I can look at any block explorer or go back here to see that a deposit of 9 million Satoshis has been made to my account. You'll see that right up here in the top corner. Pretty cool, if you ask me. I've got to say that the whole air-gapped transaction thing was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. And that's probably because this is a very new technology and not a lot of hardware wallets use it. I had certainly never used it before, and it seems like not a lot of the different apps out there, whether it be Blue Wallet or Fully Noded, are yet in support. Some of the older school, harder core wallets like Electrum and Sparrow and Spectre for the desktop do seem to work just fine with it, but in my opinion, the whole point of getting an air-gapped wallet is the ability to be on the go and sign transactions using just 2 portable devices, your cell phone and your hardware wallet. However, it is worth noting that you are going to need to have a little bit of technical knowledge to install the software. You've got to put in an SD card on your computer and make sure you get the file in the right place, make sure the card is formatted, and put it in. Not hard, but not as easy as plug and play like so many hardware wallets are. But again, Trezor is the same way. You have to install the firmware yourself. So do with that what you will. Now, migrating over to that Bitcoin-only firmware wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. You can actually build it entirely yourself on GitHub, making it even more secure and checking that the code you are installing on your device is actually the code you reviewed on GitHub. I didn't do that because I'm not a software developer, but they did show you how to actually verify the checksum, and the device even pops up on its own screen, the checksum, telling you to check and make sure that the encryption hash is the same as the one that they expect it to be on the website. That's a really great way to make sure that someone hasn't hacked into their web server and given you BS software, which is going to steal your Bitcoin. At the end of the day, I ultimately decided that features are less important than security. And so while I completely love this wallet, I am going to wait a little bit before migrating the majority of my Bitcoin over to it. With all that said, I have to say that barring any unforeseen security leaks, breaches, or scandals, I would highly recommend picking up this wallet. It is such a pleasure to use, thoroughly well thought out, and according to the team at Keystone, they're only going to continue improving and developing the wallet, although future hardware integrations and improvements are going to be new wallets, which will be, thank goodness, Bitcoin only. All right, so that's a little bit of the pros and cons. What is my final verdict on the wallet? Well, in summary, I have to say the Keystone wallet is an incredibly well-designed hardware wallet that is a pleasure to use, really well thought out, and seems to be incredibly secure. With that said, I do have some concerns about air-gapped wallets as a technology and about Keystone as a relatively new company, having broken off from a company that also is not as established as Trezor and Ledger. So while I do plan to keep this wallet around and use it from day to day, I'm still going to be keeping the majority of my Bitcoin on another wallet that is a little bit more established. Now, if you're not storing millions and millions of dollars of Bitcoin, I know I'm not, this is probably an incredible starter wallet for you. And if you compare it to running a hot wallet or, God forbid, putting your Bitcoin in exchanges, this is going to be a significantly better choice. It's also so much more user-friendly for those in your life who are not tech people and not old school Bitcoiners and are going to have difficulty interacting with something like a Trezor or a KeepKey. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this content and want to learn more about Bitcoin and how you can help other people join the economy, I would love if you took a moment to smash that like button. Join me because I'll be putting out tons of new educational content every single week, and I cannot wait to share my excitement and knowledge with you.